Check out this story from Newsweek. Fact check. Does Project Veritas video show Pfizer is mutating COVID? Hold on there a little minute, Newsweek. Why are you fact checking a claim that's not been made? This is the interesting about how the media manipulates public perception. Project Veritas released a story that says Pfizer director says thing. They did not say thing was happening. They said, hey, look, we filmed a guy who said they're exploring mutating COVID, that he thinks the virus came from the lab, et cetera, or intimated that it did. So the media does Project Veritas video show Pfizer is mutating COVID? But no one made that claim.
Right.
Now they can come out and say false. It doesn't.
Yep.
Here's the crazy thing about it, though. We'll jump straight down to the bottom. Actually, it leans slightly towards true. It says unverified. So it's not misleading, it's not false, and it's not satire. It's just unverified, which puts their needle leaning towards true. Okay, that's kind of crazy because James did not say that Pfizer as a company was doing this thing. Now, a bunch of people are complaining about the fact check because the fact check does just needlessly disparage Project Veritas and falsely frame the question at hand. But when even Newsweek, and Newsweek isn't the worst, but when even they try to falsely frame this and still end up with, well, I can't say it's not true.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting where we're at these days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
And they're just trying to throw so much like white noise, I think, at it to avoid the obvious question. I mean, everything that guy says is very compelling, especially when you verify his CV. Like, this guy actually is working on these things. And the obvious question is, what is he talking about? But then they have to throw this, well, you know, did they really say they were doing gain of function? Just debunked and that.
Yeah, I guess. So the crazy thing is the media's not even, they're completely ignoring it.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say it's crazy. In the context of Newsweek trying to do a fact check,
yep,
it's crazy that this is completely being ignored when the video, I think it got in like 8 hours, 10 million views. Probably more because I shared it. Other people rehosted it, things like that. But I'm pretty sure 10 million views on this video in a day.
It's wild.
I mean, I think that the consensus here is probably that he was not actually lying, that he is telling the truth. Because even if you're thinking, I'm going to tell this person stories that are not true to impress them, why would you tell them the stuff that the people you just said you are afraid are coming to find
right.
you? Why would you tell them the stuff that they're looking to hear?
That's why I was saying, like, when he's in the video being like, you're not one of those secret conservatives recording me, right? It's like he's starting to think, wait a minute, did I just spill the beans on this one?
Yeah.
But ultimately, I guess here's my question. We'll make it political. Like, what do we do about it? So this guy said this thing, okay? He did. It's a fact. He said it. James O'Keefe has done his due diligence and shown this guy is listed as having this job. Yeah. So what do we get? Like, should the Republicans subpoena this guy?
I would think so. Yeah.
They're doing the COVID investigation. Mm-hmm. They're launching that. What do we get out of it? Do you think anything will come of it?
Well, hopefully we get some sunlight and we get to actually see once and for all, maybe not everything we want to see, but we get some very basic questions asked. I mean, I think this just goes into the file of all the other evidence we have. I mean, everything that's happening right now in the medical community, died suddenly, all that. The questions that people have, I would add this to that long list, and this guy should be subpoenaed. You know, he should be questioned, or the folks that work for him, his supervisor. I mean, this just gives us a good starting point.
I think it's interesting that he is so comfortable with this information that, you know, first, second, third date, he's talking about it, right? Like, that's unusual. Everyone has a first date anecdote that they, you know, bring out to show your personality or whatever, and this is his.
Right.
So that means that he's in an environment where they're openly talking about this comfortably, right? Yeah. Like, this can't be the only person, and he can't have only told a Project Veritas person about this. Like, who else? And that means that this is something that because what struck me about the first video is him saying, like, oh yeah, it could be bad for America, but it's good for us. And then in this video, he's like talking about himself. How could he ever trust anything? Like, it's only self-centered motivation. Yeah.
Do you think the Republican Congress is actually going to do legitimate investigations into all of these issues? I mean, it's not just the pandemic stuff. Right. You got the Hunter Biden stuff. We talked about this before they narrowly won. But we're not entirely confident. I mean, we as in the people on the show, that Kevin McCarthy's actually going to give us real investigations.
So far, so good. I mean, I think what the direction they're heading right now, they're putting the right people on those committees. I mean, MTG is on the COVID committee. I mean, that's pretty awesome. We've got Jim Jordan, Dan Bishop, and a couple other fighters that are on the Government Accountability, the Modern Day Church Committee, going after the intelligence community, going after the administrative state. So we've got the right people lined up. Now, a big question is, what can they do? They can issue subpoenas. Unfortunately, since the budget got approved, all these different agencies, they have their money. So these agencies can do what they just did with Jim Jordan. He issued some subpoenas, and they said, the DOJ said, we'd love to help. However, this stuff's all under investigation, so we can't help you. So Congress is a little bit limited in saying that, hey, if you guys don't show up and participate, we are going to withhold some of your funding. That's not going to be available till next year. But I think right now, the direction things are heading, I think we will start getting some answers at least.
My biggest fear is not about answers, it's that we'll get some kind of answers, but there will be nothing that's done. Like, we could find out terrible things, that Pfizer's doing awful things, but because the executive branch is a Democrat and it's Joe Biden, I don't see him actually making a move.
But this is exactly why I asked it. James O'Keefe does this sting operation, gets a pretty damning quote from someone high up at Pfizer, be it a consultant or otherwise. Maybe he's lying, sure. This warrants, in my opinion, investigation.
Absolutely.
But it's not even about the executive branch. It's like, so we have this panel, of course, of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Are they going to issue the subpoenas? Are they actually going to get documents? Are they actually going to make people come in and testify, even beyond the executive branch? But I think your point's better, that we can maybe assume Marjorie Taylor Greene's definitely going to do something.
Yeah.
But then what? The DOJ does nothing.
Yeah, the only thing Congress has is the sergeant at arms. Other than that, it's like they can't do anything to make anything happen unless the executive.
Unless you were evil like Schiff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even to be fair, he didn't even get to.
Another good thing is that we got Schiff kicked off the Intel committee. Schiff and Swalwell.
So that dude
that's pretty epic.
Evil, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And he should be held accountable.
I mean, he released private phone records of a sitting member of Congress, Devin Nunes, and he released the private phone records of a private U.S. citizen, John Solomon, and a journalist.
Yep.
He said in February of 2018 that they had evidence Trump colluded with Russia, but it just wasn't publicly available. This guy was lying the whole time. That's scary.
That's like one of the number one ways you can abuse your security clearance. I mean, I had a security clearance the entire time I was in the military. I worked in the CIA for a little bit. But for him to lie and say, I have this access to classified information, it's really bad. I can't tell you what it is. You just have to trust me. We need to start ruining people's lives. Like that, anybody else would be absolutely annihilated out of the intelligence community.
Can you talk about your time at the CIA?
Sure.
Like limits? What did you do?
Yeah, I was a paramilitary operations officer. So case officer who has a special operations background who goes into this paramilitary type of stuff.
He's a CIA guy that gets into gunfights.
There you go. Yeah. So the core mission of the CIA is to go out and to recruit human sources. A lot of places that we need to do that are very dangerous places, and so they'll hire guys out of special operations.
But so you worked directly with the CIA. You weren't like a contractor or anything.
No, yeah, I was a full-on GS employee.
What's your general opinion, considering what we've seen with the DOJ, with the intelligence community, with a lot of corruption? What's your assessment?
Oh, it's rotten to the core. I mean, the CIA, the FBI, DOJ, like the problem is we've had these bureaucrats that have been running things at the mid to senior levels. The Pentagon's the same way. I spent 20 years in the military. Your average person who enlists in the military or becomes an officer in the military, they're just, like I was, they want to go serve their country. Same thing in the intelligence community. However, there is this administrative class that endures every single administration that we really never saw rear its ugly head in all of our lifetimes, obviously Kennedy and all that, but really until Trump came in. So I came in 98 under Clinton, served all the way through. And like when Obama was elected, most of us, I was a Green Beret at the time, we lean a little bit right. Not all of us, but we weren't happy that Obama won, but we took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Obama was the boss. None of us questioned it. Fast forward 8 years when Trump gets elected, and that's not who the administrative state, the managerial class, that's not who they want. And it was a night and day difference. Like they basically said that they were not going to adhere to Trump's orders.
Wow. And they follow through with that? Like, how did they implement that?
They implemented that mostly by just slow roll. I mean, especially, this is basically the long story of how I got into politics. My late wife was also in the military. She was killed fighting ISIS in Syria 1 month after Trump gave the order to pull our troops out. Because Trump ran on, hey, I'm going to end these endless wars. We need to go fight and destroy ISIS. But once we destroy ISIS, we're not staying in Syria. There was a huge concerted effort, there still is, within the administrative state, the DOD, to keep us in Syria and do like another great regime change war, because those always work out so well. And Trump wasn't having any of it. it. He gave the order to pull the troops out. Mattis resigns, Brett McGurk over at State resigns, and Trump's orders, the commander-in-chief, the people that the American people chose, his orders were completely and totally disregarded. And a month later, my wife was killed over there. So I've seen that time and time again. And with Trump, it went everywhere from like the benign slow roll, public resignation, all the way to everything we've seen with Russiagate, the tools of the intelligence community being used against a candidate in a political campaign at the time, all the way to while the guy's in government. You know, I mean, I could go on for hours about all that. But yeah, I mean, I think the Trump administration just really, because they weren't expecting him to come in and they weren't expecting him to push back so hard, we really got a snapshot of what's going on below the surface there.
That's something that I think is one of the most valuable things about the Trump presidency. As much as there are people out there that are going to go ahead and say that Trump was, you know, a foreign agent or in bed with foreign agents and stuff, it really did show that the bureaucracy really is it's the uniparty. There's one agenda that the government has, and whether it be Republican or a Democrat, the differences are marginal. You know, you're talking about a 2 or 3 degree shift in policy.
Mostly cosmetic.
Yeah, and then you get someone in like Trump that, regardless of what you think of him, it seems like the guy really wanted to do the things that he said, and everybody was flipping out because when does a politician try to do the things that they said they're going to do? Like that hasn't happened in decades or whatever. So I think that it was a really good thing that at the very least, Trump being in office and seeing that the bureaucracy, the entrenched bureaucracy or the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they literally are running the show and will do everything they can to throw a monkey wrench in even the president's plans.
What do you say to people who will just say, you're a Fed, why should I trust you?
Yeah. I mean, that's, I understand. I get that actually quite a bit. But here's the thing. I mean, I tell people my background was, my job in the CIA is, you know, counterterrorism. But if we're going to take down the administrative state, we need people from the inside who understands exactly how the sausage is made, where the secrets are kept and those types of things. Because I think a lot of times we get, when Congress calls these intelligence officials, Department of Defense folks to the carpet and says, hey, explain things to us, they say, well, I can't, it's classified. That's sources and methods. And if you have people that have worked in that space before, you can really start pushing back.
I'll say 2 things. The first is, to that point about needing people from the inside to come out and explain what's going on. I mean, this is what Project Veritas does.
Yeah.
They get whistleblowers often. Sometimes it's a sting, sometimes it's a whistleblower.
Right.
So how many people work for Project Veritas right now who are literally the people at big tech working on the censorship who said, this is bad, I can't do this, and then went to Veritas and said, let's change it. Not too dissimilar, you working for the CIA coming out saying, hey, this is bad, we need to change it. Yeah. However, I will also add the old saying, once CIA, always CIA. Right? So
sure.
I think this is why a lot of people are, well, in the chat, they're all like, Fedcast,
he's a
CIA.
Fed.
But I feel
The spook is here.
I feel like it must be different. You're describing like being Green Beret, taking this oath to office, like you say, like, oh yeah, I didn't want Obama in, but like I took an oath. Whereas like you have this other class that like feels like when they lose, they get to manipulate the system.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I could see,
power.
maybe you are a Fed, but at the same time, you know, I could see that there is a division even within that. And to me, that speaks to a lot of the dissatisfaction with military, like the lack of military recruiting that we have right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you guys can't turn around and say the next guy coming up, hey, like there are some challenges, but it was worth it, then how are we going to keep that system rolling? Maybe we shouldn't.
I don't know how we're going to keep our country. I mean, that's a big thing. Like when we can't recruit for the military, like I'm against all the escalations and all that, but we need to have a military. If people aren't willing, I mean, that's a huge issue. If people aren't willing to join the military.
You know, the weirdest thing to me is this. It's like a demand for conspiracy. It's a demand. Ron DeSantis starts giving people everything they want. He opposes critical race theory. He opposes the gender ideology.
Right.
He opens up the country. He starts implementing these policies. Then we start hearing from just some people. They're like, "It's too good to be true. He's deep state. He's got bad people around him." And I'm just like, if you can't vote for exactly what you want, you've lost already.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like the best thing you can do is support what is good and what you need and want, and hope for the best. But like politicians lie. I mean, what can you expect?
The thing that sucks is like most people feel the same way, and so that's why you have the uniparty. You get Democrats and Republicans, and people are like, well, I don't really like the Democrats, but I really hate the Republicans, so I'm going to vote for the Democrats. And then you have people that are like, well, I really hate the Democrats. I don't like the Republicans much, but I'm going to vote for the Republicans. No one gets a perfect candidate. And I think that a lot of the problem is people look at our government as if it should be a top-down government, and they don't realize or don't think about the fact that the people that are going to have the most effect on their daily lives are their local politicians, their Congress people. If you write your congressperson, you may get a response. If you write your senator, you ain't getting a response. If you write the president, you ain't getting a response.
But you go to your city council, you start going to school board. I've been going to a lot of school board meetings in this process I've had of being a candidate, and I mean that's school board meetings and engaging with your sheriff. I mean that right there, that's the stuff that actually affects people's everyday lives. Absolutely. A little bit different. We had harsh COVID lockdown, so we had the overstep of the federal government and our governor as well. But yeah, that's definitely true.
But it's still the local level politicians that are going to battle the federal government on your behalf, right?
Yeah,
like you still need them.
You need
legal
them,
and local.
100%.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.